like to welcome David into this skill short, as we're calling them. David, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited about this topic.
I'm super excited to have your voice as part of our skill snippet series here and skill short series because just we have not had opportunity yet to do that. So I'm excited to hear what you have to say. And today we're going to focus around creating an action plan. And I want to hear a little bit about from you. Why is it important to create an action plan?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. The idea of creating a plan to me is vital because there's a lot of studies out there that say learners will lose about half of everything that they learned by 24 hours after engaging in the curriculum. Thinking about that, right, is these folks spend 3 days with us and give us their time, and the thought of losing half of that, 24 hours after is frightful. But one way to battle that is to have a plan of saying, hey, here's some skills that I noticed I need to work on within the curriculum or within my life, from the curriculum rather, and how can I put those into use right now, right? I'm going to leave class, and tomorrow morning I'm going to listen and focus on one of the five reflective listening skills or whatever it may be, to help retain those skills and use them more often throughout our life. So I think it's vital to create the action plan and to put it into use as soon as you can.
Man, what an unbelievable statistic too to kind of help back that up. And hearing that makes me go, shoot, every time I've kind of said I'm going to make a plan, well, now I really need to think about making a plan. Like it's gotta happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and speaking of that, like in the idea of your experience, when have you made an action plan and stuck with it? And how have you seen that help yourself grow?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I will readily admit that I didn't use the skills for a good chunk of time after class, because life and things that happen. But one of the times that really came up to me is there's this idea at the end of class that we go over that's called fixate or focus, right? And you can choose to look at those around you and say, wow, they're not listening. They're not using the skills that I now have, right? That's the fixate on others and their behaviors. Whereas the other side of that coin is focus, right? To be able to say, hey, maybe they're not doing the best that they can, but I know that I might be able to do better. So let's try, right? And focus on using those skills. So that actually came up for me in a very unique way, and it was quite honestly life impacting. So I was out at an out of state conference, and it was a wonderful conference, but there was a point where, afterwards, there was a time for connection, and we were sitting around playing board games with one another, right? And I was sitting in a square, so there was four people all together, and there was some music going off in the background, and one of the four people that was in this group of folks, said, hey, this is Alan Jackson. And for those who are not familiar with Alan Jackson is a wonderful country artist, and has some beautiful music. But one thing that I learned in this conversation is that Alan Jackson has a disability. So this person said, hey, I love Alan Jackson, and just so happens that they share the same disability that I have. And the other three people, or the four people, were like, yeah, oh, that's really cool. We didn't know that. The person who mentioned Alan Jackson also went on to say, Alan Jackson also, the way that they told the world about their disabilities, they came on stage and said, it's just something my paw passed on to me, right? And that was really funny in the moment, and the group laughed and chuckled. But the next thing that happened is an awkward silence, and we moved on. The conversation ended. So in that moment, right, I fixated. I'm like, oh, no one's listening. And I didn't realize that I myself wasn't listening in that moment until, I thought about it later that evening. So the next day in the conference, I approached this individual and I said, hey, you know what? That was a really funny story. And I love to hear that. I didn't know Alan Jackson had a disability. And I would love to hear more about your experience with your disability in that way. The person said, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, let's talk. Let's meet up later this evening when we have some more free time, and we'll just chat. So we made a plan, and we did. And I spent the next hour with this individual and just listening to their story and their experiences and their life story in dealing with this. I learned that their family members have the same experiences, and it was just a beautiful conversation. And all I did in that conversation was listen and connect with a human being that I had never had the opportunity to before. So that was great. Conversation ended in a normal way, and we went home right the day after. We flew home, and when I got off of the plane, I got, my phone was blowing up with all the different notifications, and one of the notifications was from this person, and they had sent me a text message, and they said, "David, just want to say thank you for listening. You gave me a sense of belonging," and that to me means so much. The idea of being able just to connect with somebody and make them feel like they belong. And Adam, just between you and me, I don't know how long text messages are stored on phones, but I truly hope that they are forever because I often think back to that text message and look at it when I feel down and doubt myself in this work. But that's a beautiful story, and some would say, "Oh, well, even if it ended there, that's perfect," but it doesn't. uh,
That's good.
months go by, right? And we're living our lives and doing our things. And I get a random Teams pop-up message on my computer one day and says, "Hey, David, you got time? I just have a quick question." And I said, "Yeah, sure. I'm not doing anything." So I jump on a quick Teams call with this person, and they said, "Thank you again for listening to me. And because you gave me that experience, I am now signed up to participate in a local living library session where I'm going to talk about my experience with other people." And again, that idea that by taking the time to focus on what skills I have and how I can be of assistance and serve those in my span of care, and by simply listening, I not only changed my life, but I'm hopeful that this person continues to have that courage to go out and share their experience with others who are willing to listen. So to me, that's a really long winded way of saying that's why these are so special, these skills, right? And to be able to make that action plan of saying, I'm just going to listen to somebody today, or I'm going to work on silence and listening to understand as opposed to respond. And the power of that is the reason why this stuff matters, and to not forget half of it after 24 hours, but to put it to use.
To put it to use. Such a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
You know,
And thank you for bringing it back around to really say this is why these skills are important. This is why an action plan matters. And this is why we should take the time to figure out a way to listen to somebody and utilize these skills because you never know just the impact it might have on someone.
yeah.
David, thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Adam. Have a good one.